Hello everybody, my name is Codline39 and it's that time again. Everyone's favorite season is upon us. It is Banlist season, and this one's looking to be a little interesting. A lot of people think that the format has gotten a little stale, and they hope that the Banlist can change things about that, and I hope it does as well. So I decided to look up a couple of videos and see what people think will happen in this next list, and I kind of disagree with like 50% of them, like hard disagree. I don't think a lot of things are going to get hit that they say they are, but there is one video I did find that I think was going on the right track, and I think that is Yugioh Strat's video. He argues, since this is the 10-year anniversary of the biggest ban list in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, being the Dragon Roller one, where they hit literally everything except for the Daddy Rollers, which ended up biting them in the ass because Dragon Rollers was still very much playable after that ban list. But he argues, since it is the 10-year anniversary of the biggest ban list in history, that we should have a list like that as well, and then kind of goes off and names cards that he thinks should be hit. Now, I think he's on the right track where we should have a really, really big list, but I don't think we should have a crucifixion list. I think we should have a resurrection list instead, aka MBT's Wet Dream. But why do I think this? One, I just don't think there's enough stuff to hit in this format. Like, there's a couple staple cards that might get hit, but after that, I don't think there's really any decks that need to be hit except for maybe like one or two, and that's about it. So I don't think this format should have a really big crucifixion list. And two, I think there's a lot of stuff you can take off the ban list that could change up the metagame and be very, very good. Get people back into the game playing some older cards and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what this video is going to be. Basically me giving out things they should come off and stuff like that as a resurrection list instead. So I have two disclaimers before getting into this video. One, this is all theoretical. If you see a card that comes off and you highly disagree with it, again, this is most likely not going to happen. This is Konami we're talking about. They're probably just going to go with a safe list, not a huge list. So just keep that in mind, that this is most likely not going to happen. And two, it's been like 3 months since I uploaded. I understand that. Hopefully this changes things, but I'm not going to make any promises. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video, shall we? Now on to the banning. I think, even though this is going to be a resurrection list, I think we should have a couple of ban cards in here just to get problem cards that are in the game out of the game. The first one we're going to start off with is Eradicator Epidemic Virus. I think this card needs to go. I think this was in everyone's list. This makes sense. Being able to rip spell cards out of your opponent's hand, all their spell cards, is insane. The spell cards are the most powerful cards in the game right now that help you equalize and stuff like that going second, and Eradicator completely just shuts that down, and also gets you the hand advantage as well, which is something ridiculous as well, because now you know the hand. Now you can just play into their hand because you know exactly what they're going to be doing. Obviously, Labyrinth has been taking advantage of this card very, very well with like Clue Clock and being able to set it off the big lady. But yeah, absolutely makes sense. This card will be leaving us in the next list. I think this is probably a guaranteed hit for the next ban list. Next thing up here, we got Dimensional Barrier. I think Dimensional Barrier needs to go as well. It's just another card that prevents people from playing. I think the only decks that do not get hit by this is a trap deck, so something like Labyrinth, Dragon Link, because you can't call Link with Barrier, and then Unchained, because again you can't call Link with D-Barrier. So besides those three decks, every other deck is pretty much getting affected by Dimensional Barrier, because you're calling something and you're pretty much preventing him from playing the game. Imagine you playing like Mana Diem and they call Synchro, and all of a sudden you're just turned off from the game. So I think Dimensional Barrier does deserve to leave us. It may look like that I may be hitting both the good trap cards when it comes to Labyrinth, so it might be something that you think that I'm hitting Labyrinth way too hard, even though Labyrinth isn't really that good of a deck right now. I think both traps are just really dumb, and I don't think they should exist in the game. I think these two of these traps are both being side decked in other decks as well. Dimensional Barrier is, well, just a good sided against Branded, and you pretty much win the game, right? While Eradicator, you can play it in something like the Bestials, Tribute a Bestial to get that same hand effect as well. I think these two cards should just leave the game for us. The next banned card I have up here is Hot Red Dragon Archfang King Calamity. So, you want my hot take? I don't think this is the problem card. I think the problem card is Crimson Dragon, but obviously they're not going to hit Crimson Dragon. It just came out, so they're obviously not going to hit Crimson Dragon. So the next best thing you're going to hit is Calamities. Again, a card that probably should not exist in the game just because it prevents people from playing the game. The reason why it was balanced maybe like last year is because Hulk was able to do it, but you would have to do it during your main phase, so it played into a little bit more. While Crimson Dragon makes it where you can do this in draw phase. There's not that much stuff that can actually interact with this card. So I think Calamity should be going. I think Crimson Dragon still going to be a little powerful, but that King Calamity is gone. I don't think, at least you can play the game, right? So I think this is absolutely going to be going in the next list as well. And then the last card I think will get banned is Castria Arise Heart. Again, I think everyone thinks this is going to get hit. It just makes sense. Just a card that puts macro onto the field. Even if it has a ton of outs to this card, it's just a problem for a lot of decks. If you can't out the Arise Heart, or if they have Shifter on top of it, it is really hard to out this beast of a card. It can also banish a card face down, so it's even interruption with the macro effect, which is very, very good. This is the only cash hit I'm going to do in this entire list. I think if you hit a Rise Heart, I think cash is perfectly fine after that. A Rise Heart is really the only problem with this deck, and if you're banning it, you don't need to hit anything else in cash. So we are going to keep something like Fenrir at 3, so just keep that in mind. So that is it for the entire bans. Now let's get into the limited section. Now on to the limited list here. We're going to start off with the meta cards that are currently being played, which I think should go to 1 before we actually get to the cards that will be coming off the list and stuff like that. So first things first, I think Magnuma and Lubellion should be going away anytime soon. I think Magna is pretty much a guaranteed. Dragon Link just won Worlds with Bestials at 1, by the way, so maybe this won't do much, but I think Magna is probably a guaranteed thing that will happen in the next list where this gets limited. It's a very powerful card that can search any dragon from the deck during the end phase. It's just a ridiculous card. It's a DD Crow. It's a 25 body. Does a lot. Lubellion is the same thing. It's a searcher for Magnuma and also can get you into the brand spell traps by tributing and stuff like that. Very insane card. So I think these two cards should be going to 1 the next list, but this is pretty much it for the Dragon Links hits. I know a lot of people may want like Steel's banned and stuff like that, but I'm going to keep that around for now. Maybe next list you can do that. Next thing up we have here is Runic Tip. I think this is a better limit when it comes to the Runic hits than limiting something like Fountain, because I don't think a Fountain limit doesn't do much. Runic will still be powerful as it is, like something like the Runic Fur Hire deck. If you try Cosmic, you can just negate it with that. I forgot what the Fur Hire is called, but the Fur Hire can negate a spell trap, so you can just do something like that. But I think Runic Tip is a way better limit just because this being able to search any Runic card from the deck is very, very dumb. You can do it in draw phase as well to play around draw and stuff like that. I think this card should at least go to 1 for now. And then the last limit for the current meta is Pot of Prosperity. This card is way, way, way too strong. I think I've been playing Pot of Prosperity in Unchained, and I think it's just super unfair. Any deck can take advantage of this card, and being able to dig 6 deeper in a super consistent deck as it is, and being able to find something just to make sure you can play through stuff, or even going second trying to find the board breaker or something like that, is very, very, very dumb. The restrictions to this card is non-existent. Okay, only half a quarter. If your opponent only takes half the damage, that's whatever. Sure, you're not going to kill them that turn, but hey, you're probably going to break their board and set up good anyways. And not being able to draw the turn you activate this, that's fine. There's not that many decks that draw a shit ton. Maybe Runic comes up, but Runic's not going to be playing Pot anyways. So this is probably a card that should go to 1. Pot is way too good of a card. The OCG has it at 1. It would make sense for us to have it at 1 as well. Now on to cards I think should come off. First, we're going to start off with this Glow Up Bulb. I think this card probably should have came off on the last list, but I think it makes perfect sense. Now Revolution Synchron is out, and that basically has the same effect as Glow Up Bulb. Revolution Synchron has a little bit more of a restriction compared to Glow Up Bulb, but I think Glow Up Bulb is perfectly fine to come off the list. The only thing you can think of is the Synchro 8 that came out for the TCG. It's a TCG exclusive. Can dump Glow Up Bulb, but I don't think there's really a good Synchro 9 to make with that anyways. Again, I think this is a perfectly fine card to come off the list. should be fine. It's a once per duel effect as well, so you're not going to get it every turn or something like that. So perfectly fine to come off the list. Next thing up is Magispector Kieran. Again, I think this is past the point where this card is good. Sure, it's a bouncer card, right? So that comes up as a compulse against something like Unchained. That's a very good effect because you're not destroying the card, you're returning the card, which is very, very good. The problem with Kieran is it can't be targeted, I think. Let me read the card. I have it right here. It can't be targeted nor destroyed by your opponent's card effects. But the thing is that this is a 2K, so you can easily beat over this. I think this is a perfectly fine card to come back. It should be perfectly fine to be going back to 1. Next thing up is Orcust Harpor. How has this not already happened? I feel like this could have came off the list a long time ago. I don't think we're past the point where Orcust is actually going to be meta. Sure, it might be able to do something, but I think Harpor is perfectly fine to come off. And the one argument is we have Engage at 2. I think Harpor is perfectly fine to go to 1. I think this is a perfectly fine card. Probably will do nothing. I think it's past the point where it will do anything. So I think Harpor should be coming off the list next list. Next thing up is Tidal and Redox. I think all the Dragon Rulers should be able to come off now. I don't think the Dragon Rulers are powerful enough where it's just going to create a meta defining just around them. I think this is perfectly fine to come off the list. Have all the rulers come off to 1, especially since you're getting it new support in that new XYZ Dragon Ruler. That's a rank 7. Give them all the rulers to 1. I don't think it's really going to change much, but it would be nice to have the rulers go to 1, especially on the anniversary of that crucifixion back in 2013 where the babies got hit. I think it would be cool to see all the rulers coming off the list 10 years later. Next thing up is Chicken Game. This is basically just an Upstart Goblin. I think this is perfectly fine. The only thing you can maybe think about is Ancient Fairy Dragon can maybe take advantage of this. I don't know. I think it's perfectly fine of a card. You get to draw a card. It goes for both your opponents. Sure, you can probably get rid of it in any way, but again, at 1, I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's at 3 in Master Duel and it doesn't do anything. But I think Chicken Game at 1 should be perfectly fine. It's just another copy of Upstart Goblin, basically. Next thing up is Brilliant Fusion. This might be a little bit of a problem, but I think at 1, it's not going to be consistent enough. We're going to see it every opening hand. I know there are cards that search Brilliant Fusion, but I think it's going to be perfectly fine to go to 1. OCG and Master Duel both have it at 1, and it's pretty much doing nothing. The only thing that I'm scared about this card is something like Gem Knight FTK, but again, this is a 1 of. You would have to search it somehow. I think it's perfectly fine. It's also an Ash Magnet as well, so I think Brilliant Fusion can perfectly come to 1, and it probably would not do anything. Next thing up, we have That Grass Looks Greener to 1. I think this makes sense in my brain. Now, you might be thinking, oh my god, you get to meal 20 and stuff like that, and it might be broken. But you also have to think, if you're going to play That Grass Looks Greener, you're most likely going to be playing a 60 card variant, which means you're playing a 1 card in 60 cards. That is a highly unlikely chance of you actually drawing That Grass Looks Greener. There are cards to search it. Left Arm Offering can search it. Something like Triple Tactic Thrust can now search it as well. But think about it. If they use Left Arm Offering, they're going to get rid of their entire hand. You activate That Grass. If you get Ash, your turn is just over right then and there. I think this card is perfectly fine to go to 1. I think it should go to 1 because I think it'd be nice to see people try 60 card variants and stuff like that. I think 60 card variant might be just a little too bricky right now with Grass. I think if Grass is at 3, it might be a problem, but I think Grass at 1 should be fine enough. All the tiers have been hit. I know the Ishizus are still here, but I think this is fine. Kit is banned. All the tiers are at 1. The Ishizus are at 1. I think Grass is perfectly fine to come off. I think this is perfectly to go to 1. And the last spell card I have here is Premature Burial. It's just another Monster Reborn, basically, and Monster Reborn does not see play whatsoever. So I think Premature Burial can come off. The only problem with Premature Burial is if you have ways to return it back to your hand, you can kind of abuse it and stuff like that. But I don't really think that's going to really happen in today's current metagame. I think the only deck that can really take advantage of this is something like Infernoble Knight that can actually, maybe even search this card. But besides that, I think Premature Burial should be fine. I know there might be the loops and stuff, but I think that's not going to happen when this card comes off. I think Premature Burial is probably fine to go to 1, but I could be wrong about that, so who knows. And then the last limited card for the main deck here is going to be a trap card, is ultimate offering. This card is bad. Don't understand why this card's still on the ban list. You can only do it during your main phase or your opponent's battle phase, so it's not really that great. So if you want to do it during your main phase, you would have to wait a turn because you have to set the trap. If you're going to do it during your opponent's battle phase, that's most likely not going to happen. This card will probably get popped before it gets to battle phase anyways, so that's probably not going to happen. You need to have the hand advantage as well. The only deck that can really take advantage of this is probably something like Flunder, and even then, Flunder doesn't need this card. They have their trap card that does the exact same thing, and you can do it during the main phase, which makes it a lot more easier to do as well. So the only deck that can really take advantage of it doesn't even really want to play it anyways. Think it's perfectly fine to go back to 1. Probably will do nothing at 1. Now on to the extra deck, and this is where things get ridiculous, because oh my god, did I bring back a lot of cards from the limited list. So first thing first is Zeus. I'm going to put Zeus in the limited list. I think it just makes sense for a card like this to be at 1. Just make sure you can't play multiple copies of Zeus. This is technically going to be a hit to Purely. Again, at 1, it's still going to see play, but you're not going to be seeing multiple Zeuses. So I think Zeus going to 1 is perfectly fine. It's not going to change anything. The only thing it's going to change if you're going to go Zeus on top of Zeus or something like that. But I think Zeus going to 1, perfectly fine with me. This should probably happen next list. Next thing up is MX Saber Invoker. Again, this happened in the OCG. This happened in Master Duel. This will probably happen in the TCG as well. Again, the reason why it probably is coming off is just because there is really no good target for it right now. The thing that we got banned for is because of Zodiac. Zodiac was a reason for this card getting banned, but also the Gokis as well can help this as well. But again, the Zeus, Trident, and Broad Bowl are now banned, so there's really no good target for the Zodiacs anymore. And the only good target for Invoker for Goki is the Suprex, and even then, there's already Soul Day combos with Infernoble Tights and stuff. This is just adding another brick to your deck, and you have to play rank 3s for it. I think it's perfectly fine to come off. The problem cards like Gumblar and shit like that back in Goki days are gone now, so I think this is perfectly fine to come back. So if I'm bringing back Invoker, there's one thing I do want to come back so Invoker at least has a good target going into this next format, and that is Zodiac Trident going back to 1. I think this is perfectly fine to come off. I understand why it got banned in the first place. It's kind of because of the Tribegate Zodiac reasons, especially with Zeus being legal as well. But I think Trident can easily come off the list, and at least it gives something like MX Saber Invoker a good target. So at least you can summon a Zoo, make a Trident and stuff like that. I think if you're going to play Zodiacs, you kind of have to have the extra deck for it. So if your extra deck's tight, you really can't play the Zodiac Trident. I think this card is perfectly fine. Go back to 1. Probably. I think it's fine. I think so. I think this card is fine to go to 1. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. Zodiac Trident is perfectly fine to go back to 1. Next thing up is Wind Up Carrier Zenmaity. This would be a very cool card to come off the list. I think the only problem with Zenmaity is something like the Hunter Loop, which, again, the deck is prone to dying to hand traps like Droll and Nibiru and stuff like that, so I think that's probably fine. Anyways, Hunter, if you really want, you can ban Hunter and then bring Zenmaity back. I'd rather have it that way. But even with Hunter legal, I still think the Wind-Up deck would still not be the best deck in the room. But it would be a nice change up to see Wind-Up actually see play for once, especially in a modern combo deck format as well. It'd be very, very nice to see Zenmaity come off the list. Now on to the Link Monsters, and I think I've gone crazy when it comes to the Link Monsters. First thing up is Prank Kids Meow Meow Mew. I think it's fine. I personally think it's fine. The only problem with it is you think of it's a 1-card combo with the Adventure Engine. It prevents it from being able to get ashed as well. But the problem is it has a proneness to Nibiru. You can't make the Verte anymore because Verte is now banned. So Nibiru does a lot more to this as well. I know if you're playing the Adventure line, you can get the Griffin and stuff like that to prevent that, which is okay. I think Pop being 2 Regekis on your opponent's turn is okay at best. I don't know. I just think it's perfectly fine to go to 1. Again, only having the 1 copy prevents them from having the follow-up plays as well. So I would like to see what Prankins can do with this at 1 in this current format. This could be a mistake. This could most likely be a mistake. But again, this is a resurrection list, so we'll see what happens. But again, just remember, if you don't like this, this is most likely not going to happen. So just think about that. But in a resurrection list, maybe it can be fine at 1. Next thing up is Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. This is another card I think might be a problem if you do put it to 1, but I don't think it's going to be enough of a problem where it's just going to be a tier 0 deck. I think there's going to be a deck that finds this where it can be very, very good, but not going to be the best deck in the universe. Again, Pendulums do die to Droll and Lockbird, and that's going to be seeing play a lot. So I think Electromite probably is fine. Remember, there's also hand traps like Imperm and Veiler and stuff like that that's going to stop this as well, but I think this is fine. I think this is fine to go to 1, but I feel like there would be a problem. There could be some problems with it. So I could be right and wrong at the same time. So I can go either way. If you want to keep this ban, I'm fine with that. But if you want to put it to 1, I think that's fine as well. Again, I think this is something of a problem, but not too much of a problem what the current meta game is doing anyways, with like the VFD, the Calamities locks and stuff like that. Next thing up is Curious of the Lightswarm Dominion. I think this is perfectly fine. Tier is gone now, so you don't have to worry about this. Especially when they banned it, Tier Limit wasn't even playing it anymore. So I think Curious is perfectly fine to come off now. It's really hard to make. You need 3 monsters with different attributes. The only ones that were really doing that were like the Dangers or maybe even the Lunalights and something like that. I think Curious is fine to come off the list. I don't really think it needs to be there anymore. I understand why it was banned in the first place, but I don't think it needs to be there anymore any longer. Next thing up, or last card on our limited list, is Samorg, Bird of Sovereignty. Again, it's a problem card, but I think it's become less of a problem since the last time it was banned. So last time it was banned is because of Tri-Brigade reasons, and it was able to summon out the Barrier Statue from the Stormwinds off of it. Now, Barrier Statue is banned, and Tri-Brigade is no longer considered the best deck in the room. So I think you could probably bring it back some more. The only problem with Samorg, it does give you the Apex Valley Avion negate, which could be a problem, but again, the only deck that can take advantage of this is Tri-Brigade, so maybe throwing Tri-Brigade a bone could be nice. But that is it for the limited list. I understand the extra deck might be a little shaky, I feel like the extra decks would cause somewhat of a problem, but not enough of a problem where it's going to completely define the format. Now let's get into the semi-limited list. Now on to the semi-limited list. Yes, I do have a semi-limited thing here. Not much, so we'll just quickly go through them. First thing up first is Danger Jackalope and then Danger Tsuchinoko. They both kind of have the same reasons. So basically, they're just level 3 extenders. That's why they got limited in the first place alongside with something like Nessie. But again, I think they're perfectly fine to go to 2. They're not really doing anything. I think Master Duel has a 3, and they're doing completely nothing over there. Again, the only problem I can see with this is having something like MX Saber Invoker coming off the list. This gives it kind of a make this without using your normal summon kind of thing. But again, I think there's enough level 3 extenders in the game where that's already possible. So I think putting these to 2 probably won't have a major impact on the game, especially since these will die to Droll as well. Next things up are Tempest, Dragon Ruler of Storms, and Blaster, Dragon Ruler of Infernos. Yeah, I decided to do this. So I decided to put the good rulers at 1 and then the bad rulers at 2. Why did I do this? I think the Dragon Rulers will not do anything. Again, especially the bad rulers going to 2. Again, the only deck you can think of that could take advantage of this is something like Dragon Link. But you have to think about it. Dragon Link is playing light and dark monsters, so the only time you're taking advantage of the rulers are just special summoning themselves out in the deck, so you have to get to them in the deck, which is not hard. But if you want to take advantage of their banish effects and stuff like that, you would have to add other cards into the deck for that reason. I think this is perfectly fine. There's really no good extra deck monster for them to make right now. I think Rise Heart is really the only one, but this list should ban a Rise Heart. There's no other rank 7 that's really that great. Draco Sack Pass does not cut it anymore. There are Link monsters, something like Seals can come up and stuff like that. But again, Dragon Link is already doing that to a point where I don't think the Dragon Rulers can kind of keep up to that. Again, I don't think the Dragon Rulers are as good as people think they are. I think the bad rulers can go to 2 and then keep the good rulers at 1 for now. And that is it for our semi-limited list. Now let's get into the unlimited list. we're going to kind of speed run the unlimited list just because I just realized how long I've been recording for. So let's kind of just speed run it, the unlimited list. Herald of Orange Light. Again, this is a card that is perfectly fine to go to 3. It went to 2 last list. It most likely will go to 3 next list anyways. The Ishizus are limited. There's really no point for this card to be on the list anymore. Destiny Hero Malicious, again, is perfectly fine to go to 3. Again, the only thing that might cause a problem are like Warrior Toolbox decks and stuff like that. But then again, there's so many ways to get to the Solda anyways. I think this is perfectly fine, especially with Invoker being legal as well. Malicious are perfectly fine to go to 3. There would be no problem. Dino Wrestler Pankratops. This would be very, very cool to go back to 3. Basically, just give it budget players a Fenrir, basically. Pankratops is a very, very good card, but you can only special summon its restrictions are there. You can only special summon it once per turn, and it's a quick effect pop. It's very nice. It's at 1. I think this is perfectly fine to go to 3. I think it's just a nice going second tool, but it won't overall determine the game and stuff like that. So I think Pank going to 3 would be fine. It would change side decks, but I think it's perfectly fine to go to 3. Lunalight Tiger to 3. It's doing nothing to 3 in Master Duel. There's doing nothing at 3 in the OCG. Lunalight Tiger would do nothing at 3 in the TCG. It's doing nothing at 1 in the TCG. With Tanky at 3, by the way. People do forget we have Tanky at 3. So I don't think Tiger would do anything. Like, nothing at all. This is perfectly fine to go to 3. Red Rose Dragon is a good card, but I don't think it's going to be enough of a problem. The reason why it was a problem in the first place is because Halka Fireaxe can special summon it and then do your combo. Red Rose, now you would have to kind of commit as your normal summon. I think it's a perfectly fine card to come back to 3 just for more combo decks to take advantage of this card. Salamangreat Gazelle should have happened before the new Salamangreat support came out. Again, Gazelle would probably do nothing at 3 anyway, so I think Gazelle is perfectly fine to go to 3. Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar are perfectly fine to come off. The only reason why they're on the limited list is because of how powerful their effects are, but they have the flip restriction. So, like, that determines a lot in the current metagame. You having a flip effect usually means you're going to be bad. Yes, technically, Empty Jar would be legal, but, like, that deck pretty much dies to Droll anyway. So, we're going to keep... I think these cards are perfectly fine to go to 3, and they would do nothing. Infernity Archfiend. I couldn't decide between Archfiend or Launcher. I decided to go with Archfiend instead just because it's a monster and you kind of need to get it out of your hands. Drawing multiple Archfiends aren't really that good. I think it would give a nice consistency to Infernity, but it would not determine anything. I think Archfiend is perfectly fine to go to 3. Substitoad is doing nothing at 1. It would do nothing at 3. Rodentonen is banned. There's really no point for this card to be on the list if Rodentonen is banned. Chain Strike. Don't understand why this has been limited for the longest time. I think this is perfectly fine. Chain Burn is not going to really do anything in the current metagame. So Chain Strike is perfectly able to come off to 3, no problem. Monster Gate. The only thing this would actually create is the Mechanov FTK thing. I think that's why it got limited in the first place. But I think that FTK is super bad in the first place. I think putting Monster Gate to 3 is perfectly fine. I don't think it should have got limited in the first place. Second Light to 3. This should happen, I think. It would be a nice consistency to monster combo decks. Giving it a Pot of Greed and stuff like that would be very, very nice. Turning it off from spell traps is a hard restriction because cards like Thrust, Talents, Pots, a lot of these equalizer cards you cannot play anymore in Second Life. Now, we do know that you can play a monster combo deck and still succeed. Look at Super Heavy Samurai before the Link 1 got banned. It can exist, but I think putting Second Light 2-3 would be giving those decks nice consistency and stuff like that. I don't think it would change much anyways, just because of how powerful all the other spell traps are in the game. Naturia Sacred Tree is perfectly fine to go to 3. I understand why they did it. They limited it in the last list, but I don't think it really deserves to be on this list. It's perfectly fine to go to 3. It would not change anything, especially if you're hitting Runics like I did with Runic Tip going to 1 and stuff like that. I think Sacred Tree is perfectly fine. I think the other variants of Runic is probably better, so we're going to put this to 3. Danglong Ancient Fairy Dragon. These are cards that are doing nothing at 1. They would be perfectly fine to go to 3. And if you were going to play these cards, you would play it at 1 anyway. So putting him to 3 would absolutely do nothing. So these are perfectly fine to go to 3. And then last card is Degusto Emerald. I understand why it's limited, but I think in today's current metagame, I don't think it would change much. There's not really a rank 4 strategy in the game right now. So I think Degusto Emerald can perfectly go back to 3, and it would not change anything. So that is it for the unlimited list, and that is it for the entire resurrection list. I will put something over here to kind of show off everything I decided to hit. This is 47 changes. This is the exact amount of changes that the 2013 ban list had. I kind of went off the same number, but as a resurrection list instead. So these are all the changes I decided to make. Again, most of these things you're probably going to disagree with, like a lot of the extra deck, like the Meow Meow Mew, Electromite, and stuff like that, and Smorg as well, could be a problem coming off, and I can see that, but as a resurrection list, it would be nice to see what those cards can do. I don't think it would be the best deck in the formats, but I think it would be nice to see what those cards can do in the current meta state. Again, this is a resurrection list. This is all theoretical. This will most likely not happen. I would love it to happen, but I think it will not happen. I don't think this is where Konami's going to go. But if you're really going to do a resurrection list, I think this is kind of a couple things you can take off the list and it would not be that much of a problem. So yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more content on the channel. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.